Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today in part two. Last episode, we talked about what happens when recovery gets weaponized, really validated some of those very real experiences around when the language of recovery is used to deflect, to defend, or even to manipulate, and how that might leave many of you as the betrayed partner confused, doubting yourself, and wondering why things don't feel better. That conversation is so important because it really helps name what recovery is not. Today, we are turning the corner. And if weaponized recovery leaves you spinning, what does real recovery actually look like? How would you know if the work being done is leading to safety, is leading to trust and healing rather than more confusion? To answer that, we are breaking recovery down into two categories: physical and emotional. Both matter, both are necessary, both are very different. Today, we're going to be focusing on the physical recovery side, the more concrete, visible behaviors and actions that build the foundation of safety. And in our next episode, part three, we're going to dive into the emotional recovery side, that deeper heart work of connection, empathy, and self awareness. Our hope today is by the end of this episode, you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly the difference between recovery that just sounds good and recovery that is actually real.
The thing that I don't want to do is, and it's going to happen because this is how our human brains are wired, but I don't want you to sit down with a pen and paper and a checklist and go, check, check, nope, check, nope, yep, check, right? Or if you're the person who has been acting out, pull this out and go, okay, here's my checklist. Okay, now I'm just going to go move through a check, check, check. The reason why the checklist doesn't work is because that's not a deeper level of change. When deeper level of change is truly happening, you don't need the checklist because you are living in that embodied way. Now, I know sometimes in the beginning when you're trying to learn what it looks like, then yeah, having things written down can be helpful. But the mentality, the checklist mentality, as much as you can, I'm going to challenge you to try to set that aside and just try to step more into how do I bring these things into who I am? It's not how do I, for the next 6 months, move from point A to point B, but really, how do I move into a way of living that is long lasting, sustainable, and helps me become the person I want to be and have the relationships I want to have?
It's coming from such a deeper level because even the checklist is, I think we mentioned it last week, gets weaponized. This is what I'm doing and this is what I'm doing. And how they'll even take our podcast, this episode, and say, well, they went over all these things and I'm doing all these things. And then you shove it in the partner's face. That is, again, another form of weaponization. So I'm glad that you brought that up. We're not giving this episode to be another form of weaponization. Please do the internal self reflection work, which we're going to talk more about, where that also comes into real recovery, how it really is about that self reflecting. But first, the physical recovery, where it's those behaviors and the actions, things that are more visible, more measured, more consistent actions, is transparency and honesty. We're starting with this one because it goes along with that healing pyramid that we've talked about so many times. And the bottom level of that pyramid, that bottom layer, is truth. This is why we've talked about full disclosures and why those are so key and important to healing a relationship, because it helps to foster, promote, give full truth in that category of transparency and honesty. I love the word process when we talk about disclosure because it is a process to become truthful. A lot of times, if we get a ounce of truth, or, well, I told you the truth about that thing, great. We're looking for the process of truth telling and becoming someone that tells the truth, not just once, not just twice, but transparency, honesty, no lying, no hiding, no minimizing, being open access to devices, accounts, schedules, truth telling, especially when it's uncomfortable, not just it might be, especially when it's uncomfortable. Are we still choosing to tell the truth?
And with truth specifically, I see often where if somebody has had a pattern of lying for a really long time, then they're trying to get into this place of starting to tell the truth. White lies, especially after betrayal, are just as damaging as a big one. Because to a betrayed partner, their brain goes, if you can't tell me the truth in the little things, if you can't tell me the truth in what color of shirt you chose, like if you lie to me about those things, then naturally their brain is going to go, then what else are you not hiding that is huge? And
Yes.
so when we're talking about truth telling, even when uncomfortable, we're talking about in the littlest things all
Mhm.
the way to the huge big things and everywhere in between. I had this experience yesterday. I had a child. I have a lot of children. One in particular did not go to school. I'm chuckling because I worked from home yesterday and they hid in their room all day long. And I was like, wow, they must have stayed cold quiet all day long. But I get an email from the school and a text that says, hey, this child missed all of their periods of school. So I asked said child, hey, what happened with this? And they told me, and I said, we talked about it a little bit. And then later at dinner, they talked to dad individually about it. And I like to go on walks at night. So I took this child on a walk and we were walking. And they said to me, Mom, I want to let you know that I lied to you today when I told you what happened. And in my head, my mom brain's like, okay, don't screw this up. Don't, this is good. Like, just give him space. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, tell me about that. And they said, well, I didn't really feel bad about it. But then after I talked to dad, I started thinking about it and I felt guilty. And I really haven't experienced that before. And
Mm.
so in my head, I was like, that's so cool. And I
Mm.
said that. I said, the fact that you're feeling that guilt and that you're noticing it for the first time, like, shows you're emotionally growing. And I am so proud of you for recognizing that. And then the fact that you're like telling me about it. This is so cool. I'm so proud of you. And then they proceeded to tell me where they had told me the lie. And then we talked about like how good and how freeing it felt to not carry that. But as I'm talking with this child, it was a reminder to me that this is something that we learn. And so here's this child in early teen years learning how to do this. And a lot of times the adults I work with never had room to learn this. They never had the emotional safety to learn this. And this is not me toting of like, look what a good mom I am, because I can tell you all the equal stories maybe of not doing it in the way I want to, but in this experience, I was able to learn something from them and they were able to learn and grow through this. And what a beautiful opportunity. And so for some of you, this is the first time where you're really learning. And if you can have the humility and set aside your ego to allow yourself to be learning and growing in this and to learn to start practicing this truth telling in ways you never have before. Because, like you said, Amie, this truly is the foundation.
Yeah, it really is. And if we can't learn how to be transparent with our partner, but really with ourselves. And I love that example. Such a beautiful example. What you said there stood out to me too is that foundational emotional intelligence growing. And you're right. A lot of us didn't get the safety that you have created for your child to be able to say that. A lot of us didn't have that. And so learning how to do that, we get it. It takes time, but we have to start. Have to start creating that within ourselves and then with our partner. Those of you that are working on recovery. The other thing that I think too is important to recognize is that that transparency. How do I want to put this? Because I also see where I see sometimes this conflict is wherein couples are trying to stay on their side of the road. And so a lot of times I see these men question what to be transparent around and about, or they feel like, well, should I keep that private because maybe it triggers the other partner? Maybe they don't want to hear it. Can you talk a little bit about that too? Because I think there's a difference between privacy and secrecy.
Mm.
That's, I think it's a little confusing sometimes in this space because I'm looking at my partners about, or these men and I'm just genderizing here, these men in recovery that are like, yeah, you want me to be transparent and honest, but when I do, triggers or she gets upset. Like, what do I say? How do I know what to be really honest about? Because sometimes that doesn't work out.
Well, A, we're always going to err on the side of honesty and transparency. Let's just
Always.
start with that. And B, ask your partner what they want to know and what they're comfortable with and what level they're comfortable with. Because like I don't want to put something out there and say, okay, this is what you say and this is what you don't say, because it varies from client to client. Like when we're doing a full disclosure, one of our first things we do is the needs and requests that goes through and it like lays out, do you want to know this? Do you want to know this? Do you want to all these different things? And then to what level do you want details? And generally speaking, my partners tend to be like, yes, 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 yes. Like, I want to know it all. I haven't known it. But that's not always the case.
Right.
And so I think it's really figuring out and truly like we are both on the street together. We're constantly interacting. There is this like median that we're constantly going in and out of with each other. And so this is one of those areas that truly we want to have a shared understanding of what this means and what this looks like and when to share and how, and to have a plan created together. What that means for some partners, it may mean like if there's new information, they may say, I want you to go work that out with your therapist and process around this before you just come verbally vomit on me.
Yeah.
Or for others, it's don't come tell me this right as I'm headed into work. I can't do that. For others, they're like, the second you remember, you pick up the phone and call me, right? So it really
Yeah.
varies. So long story short, or short story long, talk about this, communicate with this. And if you need a third party to help you even lay some of these foundational pieces, this to me is one of those foundational pieces.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to bring that up because I think this one, it's a way that I also see if we don't have communication, if we don't have clarity around it, then it can get weaponized and it can create more harm than what I
Mhm.
think this one we're talking about is intended to create. So
Yeah.
thanks for going into that. The other one is accountability. What real recovery includes is accountability. This one is way more than attending groups or attending therapy. This is about living life. I would say living life out loud so that others can see your growth. So this might include those regular check-ins with your partner, might include being more active, having active participation in therapy and groups. I've heard Luke talk about this a little bit when he runs groups with partners that are struggling with the acting out behaviors. He'll talk about how some of these guys will just be the wallflowers. They're just showing up, checking off the list. I'm here, but not participating and being an active participant, not only in the group, but in therapy and in life, in recovery, really being engaged and showing up in such a deeper way. Because oftentimes it just well, I went to the thing. But how did you show up in the group? How did you show up in therapy? Are you really being transparent in that space too? Bringing that honesty and transparency into that space too. But accountability really means I'm bringing my truth forward before it finds me out, because that is what I see happen all the time is the accountability after they're found out rather than being accountable before being found out.
I really like that proactive approach. And it reminds me even going back to truth telling.
Yeah.
There's a difference between active truth telling and passive truth telling. Active truth telling is I'm coming to you and I'm sharing this. Passive is you're asking me about it or I've been caught.
Yeah.
So big difference. I'll never forget. I had this experience one time where there was this guy who would come to a 12-step group, and I was part of many and ran many. So you don't know him if you're wondering, and it hasn't been any time recent. But he would come and he would shop on Amazon all through group. He'd just scroll Amazon and shop. But his wife really was like, no, 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 like he's going to group every week and he's doing the work. And years later, he slipped back into old patterns, ended up cheating again, and they are since long divorced because he truly was not invested in it. When I am running a group and I have somebody invested, they're asking questions. They're looking within themselves. They're feeling uncomfortable because a good group is going to take you places emotionally that stretches you.
Mhm.
That's what that active participation in a group looks like versus passive. I'm just sitting there scrolling on my phone or
And
even
again,
just sitting there and zoning out in my own brain.
yeah. Well, and again, I wanna validate for the partners a little bit because that is hard to know if they're really being active participants when you're not there witnessing or watching. And unfortunately, I see all too often this happen too of they're asking questions and maybe quote participating like we're suggesting here. And yet what's underneath, like what's motivating is to be able to go and show their partner, see, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing all the things rather than letting that really be for their own growth and their own learning and development. I'm noticing a little bit of a trend. Maybe it's just because I'm talking to I don't know. Sometimes when I see these trends in recovery, but I'm hearing more of my partners reporting this. Well, he's telling me he's asking questions. He's telling me he's doing the things. That in of itself stands out to me. That they're needing to tell their partner all the things that they're doing in group. Like, see, I'm showing up and I'm asking all the questions and da 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 da. Rather than just allowing. Do you know what I'm saying? I know I'm
Yeah,
you know,
no, no, no.
fluttering
Well,
over my words here.
listen, the difference on how this sounds, okay? What you just said versus, oh my gosh, we went to group today and they talked about this. And I just realized that I have been doing this all along. And that is so uncomfortable, right? One is the self awareness, one
Yeah.
is sharing the experience, the other is performative, which we talked about last week. There is a big difference. And when you were first talking, I'm imagining partners going like, "Ah, Amie, like how do I even know the difference if he's saying all of this stuff?" So, like it can sound different, but people are smart. They can listen to us and go, "Oh, this is how it sounds." But what does come out over time is the actionable results. What does come out is how it resonates in your body. And that might you might not have that in the moment, but over time patterns will repeat themselves or patterns will be changing and you will start to notice and feel that. And so this is where I want to give you permission that sometimes you're not going to have answers in the moment, but it's okay for you to trust yourself and just keep learning how to listen to your body. And those answers will come with time.
Yeah. It's their commitment to sobriety no matter what happens. Releasing even the expectation of what your work, your honesty, your accountability, your recovery leads to is a huge indicator there. So a lot of times my partners will feel the pressure to stay in order for them to stay in recovery. And that's always my little red flag as a professional, like, okay, hold on a second, right? If you're feeling pressure
Yeah,
to stay for them to make recovery work, that's a red flag.
if you have to hold your foot on the gas
Yeah.
for them to have the momentum, that is important information for you and it's uncomfortable information. And so like that sounds like in our own head, well, if I don't do this, then he won't.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you might
Yeah,
not.
that's
So
that's a sign that we aren't looking at a deeper recovery. Mhm.
then boundaries and this is, I think, again, more the actionable changes that you're talking about. Like you will see those boundaries respected. You'll see them create their own boundaries for themselves in their own life and for their recovery. And then you will see the lifestyle shift. You'll see things change. The way that they show up in their own life individually as a human being, as a person will shift.
How they interact with their boss shifts, how they
Yeah.
interact with their kids shift,
Yeah.
how they're
Yeah.
interacting with you shifts because there is that greater change that's happening within them.
Yeah, even those daily routines, their sleep routine, how they eat, how they exercise, how they those are all part of recovery and how they take care of their physical body to pay attention to those triggers and then how they manage them. It's important to know what that is as a partner, as you're observing. But those of you that are in recovery, if you don't know what that looks like for you, if you can't rattle off the boundaries that you have and the way that you're changing your living style behaviors, maybe we need to get a little bit more curious about that. When I ran the young single adult course, and they were really these young single adults dating and wanting to date healthy, one of the things I encouraged them to do is ask those questions. They were all worried about getting in relationships with someone that was addicted to pornography or had these issues, and they didn't want to be sideswiped by it. It was bring it up. Ask them if the person that they're dating comes back and says, yes, I've struggled with pornography and masturbation, and they're honest about it. That's awesome. Then ask them how they manage that. What boundaries do they have for themselves? What support do they get to help them in their recovery? And if they don't have an answer for that, that's a red flag. They're probably just telling you what, they know you want to hear. So this is a big piece to know, not only as a partner, but the one in recovery. What does that specifically, what are your guardrails for the work, for travel, for social spaces? You got to know that.
And are they continuing to isolate, or are you seeing them find healthy connections? Are
Mhm.
they choosing healthier people to connect with, or are they choosing unhealthy people to connect with?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that go into those lifestyle shifts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then this one I think is honest. I'd say they're all huge, but this one really gets missed, I think. The amends part, how they make amends on a daily basis.
Well, amends in action. And I love that in action. Amends are not a one-time thing. Amends are not an apology. An apology is part of an amends, but amends in action means actions that are happening live.
Yes, yes. So that really goes along with the actionable change. We talked earlier about these physical pieces of recovery can be measured. And so are you seeing that with the amends piece? Repairing the harm relationally, financially, emotionally. Can you actually give a couple examples, Alana, of like I'm thinking for our partners that are listening to this, like what would that look like for them to seeing more of that daily actionable amends? Because I think sometimes it's just more we're looking for it more verbally, like like you said, like I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It is
Um,
deeper. It's way deeper.
yeah, I really like in the book Worthy of Our Trust how they have the amends matrix. It goes through 7 steps of amends. In essence, I'm gonna like break it down really simply to present, past, future. It's an awareness of what's happening in the present that is connected to pains of the past, which is creating the pain today. And then it's what am I doing today that's creating the future that we want tomorrow, or that I want tomorrow. And so it really is about making those changes and having that constant awareness, because for a betrayed partner, especially in the beginning, triggers are nonstop. You're in pain all the time. And so when those amends are honoring, validating, hearing, seeing that pain, I see you hurt today. And it is because of those choices I made in the past is why you're in pain right now. And these are the things that I'm working on that I want to help heal our future. And I know they can help today, but I want to stay and validate that pain in today. And that's some of the emotional amends. Some of the financial amends are I took this money from our savings or our checking account and I hid that from you. And I want to be accountable to every dollar. And I want to I had my partner pay me back every dollar that was added up. And for some people that's reasonable. For some people maybe that's not what you wanted to do. It felt pretty damn good to me. I'm not gonna lie. But that was a type of amends. And not only amends with that, but amends of bringing in the transparency of for a long time, he didn't carry any cash. It was triggering to me, and there wasn't accountability in that. So part of the amends process was because of my choices in the past, I'm creating safety today. And that's part of my amends because I want to heal moving forward. so I'm not going to carry cash. So it was amends is a combination, right? Some of those personal boundaries, some of that transparency, and it's seeing the other person again with the past, present, and future all combined.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, with going along the lines of amends, I would imagine that a lot of this is going to come, like the term breaking pattern just coming to my mind. When we notice the patterns happening, so sometimes the amends is like a real time kind of awareness and shift. And I guess, want to create some normalcy around that too. We don't always know what that might look like. But
Yeah.
if we're seeing a pattern repeat and we need to change that pattern in that as close as we can in that moment, soon as possible, to create that new neural pathway, I think there can be an opportunity for amends there too. Like, okay, hold on. I'm noticing that we're doing this thing that
Mhm.
we're doing. Okay, that's happening right now. And really stopping that pattern. And that is an opportunity for amends right there. Okay,
Mhm.
this is how I have been showing up in this pattern. And I can see that, and here's how I'm going to choose to change. Let's practice it right now. So I think
Okay.
there's some opportunity for real time amends work, more so than I think a planned. And I know a lot of people
Yes.
want the planned amend.
Okay, yes. That is such a huge point. I'm going to add another element to this because as a betrayed partner, I may have heard this and been like, yes, he needs to do this and this and this. Like, but I will say for you as a betrayed partner, you have so much power around breaking patterns and recognizing patterns. This is not one that you hand off and say they need to break the patterns. I mean, yeah, they have their responsibility of breaking patterns, but you have so much power here. The more awareness you get around these patterns, and the more every time the pattern starts, you catch yourself and you say, hold on, how would I have responded in the past to this pattern?
Yeah.
How do I want to respond differently? That is where you have so much power because when going through all of this, there's so many things that have been outside of your control.
Mhm.
And I used to have this saying on my wall, and I put like control the controllables because I felt like so many things were in my power and control. This is an area where you have so much power in your own life and so much power in healing and so much power relationally to be able to be part of breaking patterns. So
Yes.
that's where I just like to partners, please do your work in this area because it is one of the greatest tools you can put in your tool belt.
Yeah. And then those of you that are working, what real recovery would look like is as you bring that up and you're like, okay, hold on, I'm noticing this. This is how I notice I'm showing up and I don't want to show up that way. Those of you in recovery, is an opportunity for you then to real time repair. There's some real beauty and power in that and healing in that. I know it's most often going to be a little clunky. That's okay. It's still the awareness around it. Can you hear her at all? Is it blocked?
No, Zoom blocks out. So Amy's dog is barking, but Zoom blocks it out. But I
Sorry.
actually was going to say, because for those of you who watch the YouTube, your dog has been sitting on the back chair. And like sometimes I'll watch you, but Stella is so much cuter. So
Oh,
really, Stella in the corner.
my lawn my lawn guy is here, and so she's like, "Wait a second." So my little protector just showed up.
So cute.
Anyways, those oftentimes can be more powerful, genuine, and real amends when we can slow things down and change it in that behavior, those patterns, those cycles.
Mhm. Yeah, and the term I like for that is the corrective emotional repair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
As we're looking at all of these, we're looking at physical recovery, we're looking at behaviors and actions. We've separated that out. We've talked about transparency and honesty and all of the things under that. We've talked about the commitment to not acting out in sobriety, all of the things under that, accountability, boundaries, personal boundaries, protecting yourself, protecting your relationships, lifestyle shifts, and then amends and action. And so all of these have a list. Like we said, it can be a checklist of behaviors. All of these are important. I remember one time there was a book, I don't remember what the book's called anymore because we don't really use it in recovery, but at the end was basically like these checklists of what it looks like to be in recovery and what it looks like for a partner to be in recovery. And I really liked them at the time
Mhm.
because there wasn't anything out there like that. And I feel like this covers the high level overview of a lot of that. But what I have really discovered the longer that I've done this, and this is why I love our men's phase 2 groups, is because this is their focus, is there's these behaviors and actions, but there's also the need for emotional growth, emotional healing, emotional repair. And so we've broken it up into these 2 categories because what I see so often, I did a TikTok on what I'm about to say one time, and I got so many comments on this. What I see so often, I'm gonna genderize this, is men will come to me and they're like, "Alana, I'm doing da 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 da," and there are all these behaviors. And they're like, "My wife's still unhappy. Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm making dinner every night for the family. I'm going to work. I'm like bringing her flowers once a week. I'm taking her on dates. I'm going to therapy. I'm doing right." And they're listing all these things. And like while those are filling up the tank of behaviors and actions, and those can be really good, like let's say you're doing it all with good intention. Those are really good, but there is a separate emotional tank. And all of the emotional healing and the emotional growth and the emotional connection and the emotional awareness is a separate tank. And so they do all of these actions over here while missing this whole emotional component. And so we're not getting that deeper level of repair and connection with yourself and with your loved one. And so we really broke these out. So today we've really focused on this list of behaviors and actions. Next week, we're going to look at this other piece, and we're going to look at, and this is what I hear from women, is they come in and they're looking for these deeper levels of trust, this deeper level of intimacy, this deeper level of connection. And they're like, why can't we get this?
Yeah.
And the women are focused on this and the men are focused on this. And we want to be hitting both of them. So we don't want to rush through this and not give a depth to the emotional piece because this really is essential. And a lot of times too, I see when individuals first start the recovery work, it is a lot of the behaviors and actionables
Yeah.
because that's just what we need and where we're at. But
Mhm.
we have to incorporate and then move deeply in to this deeper level emotional work because that's how we truly heal and move forward. We can't do one without the other.
No. So be patient with us. We're going to break this down, slow this down. Next week, we're going to talk about the emotional piece because it is a lot deeper, a lot more nuanced too.
Yeah, a lot more nuance. That's a great way to put it. Mm. So, as always, we're sending love as you're doing this work. It is hard, it is powerful, and it is so much bigger than just you. It ripples out to everybody around you, your friends, your children, your coworkers, the world. Like your healing is so valuable and so much bigger than you can ever comprehend. So, as always, thank you for hanging out with us, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Hey, ladies, I want to tell you about something that could be the next step in your healing journey. It's my group coaching program, Believing in You. And it was created for women like you who've been through betrayal, abuse, or deep relationship pain and are ready to reconnect with yourself again. Believe in you again. Because when your world is shattered, it's not just the relationship that breaks, it's your belief in your own worth, your voice, your intuition, your future. And I get it. I live that. That's why I created a space where you don't have to figure it out alone. Each week, I coach you live, teaching tools, concepts, worksheets galore to help you really become more aware of what your old beliefs are and helping you shift into new beliefs. Teaching tools that actually support your nervous system healing and help you shift the beliefs that are keeping you stuck. You'll also get resources between sessions and be surrounded by a community of women who totally understand. It isn't about whether you're staying or leaving. It's about you choosing and learning to believe that you can trust yourself. You can heal, you can love, you can create something beautiful on the other side of this, no matter what the other person in the relationship does. You get a free 7-day trial. So come feel it out. If you've been doing this work and you're ready to take it deeper, or maybe you're just starting and you want a safe, supportive place to land, this is for you. Apply today and let's believe in you again.